Welcome to the Betting Above the Rim podcast. Today's date, April 14th, episode 140. And before we get into our tip-off topics, I had to bring in the hired gun. I need to bring in someone that knows as much ball or more ball than I do. We're pleased to have Michelle Beadle from obviously Beadle and Decker on XM Sirius Holly Radio, Mad Dog, and obviously host of Run It Back. Michelle, welcome to the Betting Above the Rim podcast.
Thanks for having me. Good day to do all this. News is happening. Things are going down.
Yes, and speaking of going down, let's get right to our tip-off topics. Mike Budenholzer, as maybe not a shock to any of us, got let go today, according to the Shams Sharania. It was probably broken on Michelle's show this morning. But interesting times in Phoenix. Michelle, what are your thoughts on Bud getting fired? And should there be more people being held accountable for what's going on in Phoenix?
I mean, look, I guess at the end of the day, Matt Ishbia is the one writing the checks to everybody to not work, which, by the way, I've done that before, and it's awesome. We all should be so lucky. But, I don't really understand what the plan is, right? Like, okay, you fire Budenholzer. What is the plan? Who do you think you're bringing in? What do you think is going to change? We all know the sort of dire financial situation they find themselves in as far as money spent and not a lot in return. So, whoever gets this job next, is there even staying power in being the head coach of the Phoenix Suns? And who will even be there to coach? So this is a disaster of epic proportions.
And I think the crazy thing is you're talking about going into next year, your fourth coach in 4 years. And if you think about it, they were 2-0 NBA Finals, and literally the whole organization just fell off. I mean, the trade, bringing in Bradley Beal, getting Kevin Durant. By the way, look for him to ask out as soon as he can, because he ain't dealing with this. But it's just a troubled time in Phoenix. And I do think Matt Ishbia and James Jones needs to take a little bit of credit and responsibility for what is happening. There's only so many times you could shuffle the coach. Maybe you need to shuffle the GM. Can't get rid of the owner. Speaking of shuffling, let's head to New Orleans, where their GM was fired today. Not shocking if you think about it. David Griffin let go after 6 seasons, according to Shams. There are already rumors that Joe Dumars, who is a New Orleans native, or outside New Orleans native, who did a great job running the Pistons, was in the Sacramento Kings organization as they started their rebuild, being talked about as a successor. What are your thoughts here on Griffin being let go in New Orleans?
I like Griffin. I think a lot of people do because he's done a lot with media and sort of everyone's gotten to know him a little bit over the years. It's another one of those weird situations where on paper, you had Brandon Ingram at one point as well. Like, you have the talent. Now, the availability of Zion Williamson will forever and always be the big asterisk, or the elephant in the room. Is he there? Is he not? We've seen a lot more of him lately, which has been nice, but that's hard as well on a GM because you're planning to put your pieces together. And when you do these plans, you think you're going to have the star there. And in this particular case, you didn't. So it's a tough gig, but I understand the need to sort of change things, shuffle things around. I don't know if they try to move Zion. That's always being sort of bantered about. We'll find out.
And an interesting thing is you decided to trade BI over Zion. You knew one of them had to go. Maybe you didn't get the return that you thought you could have get for someone with the caliber of BI. I mean, I think that's also something to look at, Michelle. What do you think?
I think what happens in those cases, as we know, we've seen it year and year and year, is once a player wants out, once you realize that they're not going to give him what he wants financially, he's no longer very interested in being there. All the value sort of drops significantly. It's just like negotiations 101. You can't show your hand. The hands were shown. So I don't, and we've talked about it a lot as well. I don't even know what you get for Zion Williamson. It's the same conversation we'll have with a Joel Embiid every once in a while. Like, yes, we're not stupid. We have eyes. They are obviously, made to play the game of basketball, but their bodies don't always cooperate. So what exactly do you get back in return, and who's in the market for them? So I'll be curious to see if, along with Griffin, this involves a big change of strategy. And if that means kind of looking at what they have and taking it apart a little bit and putting it back together with new pieces. I have no idea, but I think a market for Zion is a very interesting one to keep an eye on.
And it will be. Obviously, getting DeJounte Murray before the season, you like someone like Trey Murphy III, who can't stay healthy, I thought was going to be one of the best 3-and-D guys in the NBA. Alvarado, Herb Jones. They have a lot of pieces there that's going to be interesting in New Orleans. Speaking of hot seats, there is a hot seat you think maybe coming up not too far from me, down in the city of brotherly love. Tell me what you thought. Who could be on the hot seat next year in the NBA?
I mean, it's crazy to say, and I realize that they've had their exit interviews out in Philadelphia, and that Daryl Morey sat alongside Nick Nurse and talked about really his failings as well, which I respect. You can't just go up there and kind of BS. You got to give them something. And I know they said that he and Nurse are coming back. But are they? I mean, to me, the seat is hot. And again, I don't blame Nick Nurse. We obviously know that Nick Nurse can coach. He's coached himself to a ring. But you can't do a lot when the big chunk of your roster is sitting in street clothes or is having surgery, or you waste months and months of a season knowing in the backs of everyone's mind that Joel Embiid's going to need some sort of a procedure, and you wait until now to finally do it, and now you've added on to the time for rehab. So to me, Nick Nurse, hot seat.
And I think with Embiid, this could have gone back to last year playing on one leg. Probably shouldn't have played in the Olympics. I mean, Andrew Wiggins wasn't allowed to play for Canada. Kawhi got pulled out by the Clippers. Look how they're doing. We'll talk about them in our next segment. For me, it's Tibbs. And I'm a Knick fan. And I know people wait. But here's the thing. Here's a team that has shuffled the deck. Here's a team that's gone all in. They lose, obviously, Randall in the trade and DiVincenzo, a very popular, especially Dante, for his performances in the playoffs. If the Knicks flame out and they didn't beat anybody of significance during the regular season, could Tibbs be on the hot seat possibly in New York, even though he's got a great relationship with guys like Hart and Brunson? That's
the crazy thing, because full disclosure, love Tibbs, worked with him at ESPN for several games. I like his demeanor and personality. But, if we're just trying to be logical about it, I don't know what the expectation realistically is for New York to come out of the East. That is a pretty daunting mountain to climb. And like you just said, they beat no one of significance all regular season long, which I think is a very interesting stat. And then, you got Michael Malone now floating around out there, a New Yorker. Much has been made of the idea of him possibly showing up as the Knicks coach in the future. I don't want to see it, but I can't say that it doesn't make sense.
All right, so let's wrap up this segment with our awards. Quickly, Michelle, who do you have in your award winners for this year, if you had the vote?
Okay, if I had the vote, God, there was a time. If I had the vote, I might. It's probably not shocking. Maybe a couple spots because you got your SGA. I think he's the MVP. Although, again, 100% can have the Jokic discussion. Steph Castle. Once rookies went out, I think it became Castles to lose. Dyson Daniels for me has been so interesting. I understand he doesn't have a podcast, and so he couldn't manifest it, but I still have him winning. Zubats for me most improved. Just the Clippers alone have been such a story. JB Bickerstaff has taken a team from 14 wins to 44 wins and a spot in the playoffs, so it's a no-brainer. And Peyton Pritchard, sixth man. Maybe it's not the sexiest award on this list, but yes, it's his.
Well, my list is kind of similar. I do have SGA. Winning the MVP, obviously, the fact that 15-game lead and the stats he put up, fantastic, almost close to a 50, 40, 90 season. Steph Castle, you're right, people just fell off the wayside, so it was almost process of elimination, but his play down the stretch, the Great Barrier Reef, Dyson Daniels does a great job, especially playing next to Trey, who plays no goddamn defense whatsoever.
Doesn't have
to. Cade Cunningham, good point with you. For me, Ime Udoka, coach of the year. This team had over under win total about 31.5. What a great job by Ime. And, of course, Pritch better get my money. Peyton Pritchard to be sixth man. Coming up next after the commercial break, we'll get into our award tours. Michelle and I will talk about our Eastern Conference odds, our Western Conference odds, and is there a team that we think could make a run that's outside of Oklahoma City, Boston, and Cleveland? We'll be back with our award tour with Michelle Beadle right after this commercial break. Welcome back to the Betting Above the Rim podcast, episode 140. It's time to get into our award tour with Michelle Beadle. First off, we're going to go through the East, West, and then a sleeper pick. But let's start in the East, where the favorites are the Boston Celtics right now on FanDuel minus 140, Cleveland at plus 185. Huge drop off to the Knicks at 11-1. Indiana 23-1. Milwaukee, oh my God, talk about a guy in the hot seat. What happened to him? 60-1. Detroit, how you doing? Orlando, Atlanta, Miami, Chicago. Thanks for coming home. Do not put your money on them. So Michelle, if you were to pick a team to come out of the East, who is your team and why?
I mean, look, with those odds, I wish I had a sexier answer because the idea of the Bucks at plus 6,000 is like, yeah, it's worth a couple dollars, I suppose, just in case. Although I don't know about Damian Lillard, but I'm going to go with the Cleveland Cavaliers. I realize that they've been dealing with this quote unquote level of disrespect. It's not really a level of disrespect. The Celtics are the defending champs. They will always get the benefit of the doubt until proven otherwise. And so they let go of the rope a little bit here towards the end of the season. Cleveland did. I don't know if I should be reading more into that than I actually am. But I'm going to go ahead and say maybe they run into a situation where Boston does that thing where they shoot 1,000 threes in a game, but they go cold. And if that's the case, perhaps Cleveland can then cash in on that. So I'm sticking with the Cavs, and I hope I don't look like a fool.
Well, interesting. When you look at Cleveland, Donovan Mitchell's numbers in regard to scoring is down, but I think they've become more, Michelle, about the sum of their parts, right?
Yes.
The elevation of Garland, the elevation of Mobley, Jared Allen consistency, the bench play, right? Getting DeAndre Hunter, which I thought was, and I think I went on your show when after it happened. I think the sneakiest trade at the deadline was getting DeAndre Hunter as a way that as you could go big, going 3-4-5 with them, with Mobley and Allen, or play him as a stretch four. My team, I hate it. I'm a Knicks fan. This sucks. It's Boston. Why? Because New York, I can't even bet the Knicks as much as I want to because I don't trust them to get over the hump. And Cleveland, as much as they are fantastic, we saw this Cleveland team flame out 2 years ago against the Knicks when Mitchell Robinson punked both of those guys, Allen and Mobley. That's why I thought it was interesting if New York was going to get that 4 seed. I thought that would have been an interesting matchup because I thought the better play for New York was through Cleveland, not Boston, to get to the Eastern Conference Finals. Really quick, I will say this. I don't know what your thoughts. Indiana's intriguing.
Now they are, yeah.
Yes, because Tyrese Halliburton is playing like a top 20 player in the world. They're another team that's got length. They have a bench. Remember, Tyrese Halliburton, after losing game 1 last year, didn't make it through game 2 when they got swept. So if they could, honestly, if they could get a damn stop, if they can get stops, Rick Carlisle's won a championship. He's one of the 5 to 10 best coaches in the league. Indiana at 23-1, that may be something to think about because I actually think in the second round they could give Cleveland a battle. What are your thoughts?
They've been very sneaky. It's so funny because we were just talking about it today and Lou Will was like, I'll be honest with you, I haven't watched a ton of Pacers games. And we realized because they started this season out so wonky and cold and not like anybody that you would have to keep track of throughout the season because you just thought, I don't need to worry about them. It's not going to be anything come postseason. And then all of a sudden look up after the trade deadline and they've just figured it out. They've gotten their stuff together. And so to me, it's a very intriguing one as well. Sometimes when no one's taking you seriously or even thinking about you at all, I think those are the better stories that come out of these types of playoff runs. So I don't hate the idea, especially at those numbers.
Well, let's head to the Western Conference where it is going to be wild. Right now, Oklahoma City Thunder minus 150 favorites right now. Lakers, 6.5 to 1. As long as Bronny don't play a ton of minutes. Golden State 9 to 1. Denver 10 to 1. Coaching change. Wow. Minnesota 13 to 1. Clippers 17 to 1. Houston intriguing 2 seed 25 to 1. Memphis, just keep all the antics to yourself. And then Dallas, Sacramento, thanks for playing. Drive home safely. Who is your thoughts on who is coming out of the West?
First of all, that's hella disrespectful to the Rockets. I get it. I understand why they're down as far as they are on this list, but you've got experience all up ahead of them. But it's still kind of crazy that a 2 seed is that far down the list. And that the Lakers, I get that as well. You got LeBron James and Luka as 2 generational players. It makes sense to me why they would be considered the second favorites. For me, who am I going with this one? I think I was going to pick the Thunder. You know what? Because my upset is coming, my potential upset to look at. So for me, I'm going to do Thunder because I don't want to go against them yet, even though I am part of the group that's like, I'm not sure yet what to think of. But I do have my upset coming out of the West, and it's none of those top teams that you're looking at right now.
And I do agree. I do have Oklahoma City coming out of the West. So let's get to it right away. If there's a team that makes a run that's outside of the Oklahoma City, Boston, Cleveland, so we're looking at 17 to 1 or worse odds, who is your team that could make a run?
I can't believe I'm doing this because I spent years, like when I was at ESPN, sort of mocking the jinx that the Clippers seem to live under. But my goodness, if I lived in a state right now where I could use my app, I'd be putting a couple dollars on that plus 4,500 for the Clippers. There's something about watching, and I want to knock on wood when I say this because I want Kawhi Leonard to stay healthy. This is 2019 Kawhi we're watching, and I, as one, with my Spurs not in this, I just want to be entertained. And if we get the Clippers doing what they've been doing as of late, with Harden and Kawhi playing as if no time has passed, I think it could be an interesting run for the Los Angeles Clippers.
And that is interesting. Let's just hope that James Harden performs like he did last night, like he does in Game 7s, where he kind of tends to struggle. My team is right above yours, and that's Minnesota.
Okay.
I look at this matchup, and spicy take of the day, I have Minnesota knocking out the Lakers in the first round of the playoff. I think you look at Anthony Edwards as someone that can take his game to another level on both sides of the ball. I think he's a sneaky good defender, and when he's engaged and dialed in, he can do that. You got a guy like McDaniels, another person who can defend. Rudy Gobert is going to be a problem versus the Lakers because what in the Alex Len, Rui Hachimura, Jackson Hayes are we doing? How are they going to stop them off the boards unless they put them all on the perimeter? So my team to look at is the Minnesota Timberwolves. Let's see if Julius Randle does something. But you made a good point. He's not in New York. Could
not
be
New York,
less
baby.
Pressure. After this commercial break, we'll end today's talk about our scouting report, where we'll break down all 4 playing games, leading off with obviously Atlanta versus Orlando, Memphis versus Golden State. Oh, they may whoop that trick. Heat versus Bulls, and Mavs versus Kings. We'll be back with our scouting report with Michelle Beadle after this commercial break. Welcome back to the Betting Above the Rim podcast, episode 140. And it's time to get into our scouting report, where we preview, in today's episode, all 4 games in the play-in tournament. And let's lead off with the Battle of the Southeast Division. Trae Young and Atlanta. Orlando, Paolo Banchero. This team's battled injuries all season long. I thought Jamal Mosley did a great job. What are your thoughts, Michelle? Who comes out the winner between Atlanta and Orlando?
I have fluctuated on this one, and I still am doing that as well, because if it's a one-game sitch, I think Trae Young lives for the moment. But in this particular case, I've seen Orlando up close and personal not that long ago, even this newer version with the fewer injuries, and I'm going to take Magic winning this one. But this one to me is like, it's a toss-up, because I trust Trae Young. I really do in these big moments.
And Trae is definitely someone that's going to live for the moment, but I do agree. I think it's Orlando. They kind of faltered way off at the end of the year, but they had such a great run, especially losing Wagner and Banchero. Then the other Wagner goes out, and obviously losing Suggs to the season. What a job by Jamal Mosley. He was up for me for a coach of the year until they fell off the cliff. Next game, here we go. The whoop that trick matchup. Ja and all of his celebrations versus Draymond and all of his extracurricular activities. Here we go. Grizzlies, Warriors. Who do you got in this matchup in this game?
I realize that the old Warriors, which I think is always funny, they are an old team at this point compared to most. I think that this idea of a play-in is a disaster for them, and that's what happens when you don't take the Spurs seriously in the regular season. You're welcome. But I do have them beating Memphis. I as much as I want Ja to be a great damn basketball player, I just don't think he's prioritizing the right stuff at the moment. So it's the Warriors and all that experience. Can't say no.
And I would agree with you. I do think it's going to be Golden State at home. I think they kind of fumbled their chance in overtime versus the Clippers. And remember, Golden State 1 year was the 7th seed. They lost to the Lakers, and then they lost to Ja Morant and Memphis to miss out on the playoffs. I think they're going to remember that. First game on Wednesday night. Heat Bulls, big matchup. Heat culture. Does Billy Donovan, who I think should have left them a long time ago, but is still there for some crazy reason, versus the Bulls. Who do you have, Michelle, in Heat Bulls?
Look, I know what the Heat have done. I understand what they've managed to. They are the poster child for what a play-in run could look like, but that was a long Heat team ago, and that guy is no longer with this team. So for me, watching Chicago lately, I can't believe I'm saying this out loud, I think they figured a little something out there, and they seem to be enjoying playing basketball as a team. So I'm taking the Chicago Bulls to win this game. What is happening?
It's amazing. You get rid of DeRozan and Levine, and all of a sudden, they may have figured it out. Vucevic is even playing defense, for God's sakes. I mean, that's amazing. Last matchup, and I'm going with the Heat culture really quick because I just think that there's always a will and a way that they get it done, but they've never had to win 2 to get in the playoffs. Last matchup, Dallas and the Walking Wounded. I don't even know who is 80. Is 80 playing? Is he back? I mean, I guess he's back, but he can get hurt in warmups versus Domantas Sabonis and a team that I was so high on, and I was so pissed when they fired Michael Malone. What is your thought on Dallas, Sacramento?
So here's what I just can't. The Lakers game when they went to Dallas like a week or two ago, or no, it's only been a week. Good Lord. It was the disappearance of AD, and it was an unfortunate reminder of what he sometimes tends to do. And so if you can't get up for that game, then I can't trust you to get up for any of these games. So give me Sacramento.
And I was wrong. I said Mike Malone. I'm mad about Mike Malone being fired.
I know you were.
So Mike Malone, Mike Brown, Michael Jordan, Michael Jackson. I'm mad at all things with Michael, except Michael Vick. Really quick, who do you have as the 8 seeds coming out of the East and the West?
I have the ones you're looking at here. I have Sacramento coming out as the 8, which, by the way, big prize. You get to play the Thunder. And then on the East side, I have the Hawks coming out as the 8. And that might be a little interesting. You know what's interesting about that is you have the redemption of George Niang and Karis LeVert against the team that traded them away while on a historic run, which can't sit well, ladies and gentlemen. So give me that one. I got Hawks Cavs round 1 in the East.
Ooh. Spicy. I have the Heat culture finding their way in. And then I agree with Sacramento. I think that there is going to be a lot of issues coming out of Memphis coming out of this season. Thank you for Michelle Beadle for coming on today's podcast. For all things sports gambling, make sure you download that Sports Grid app. Pre-game, endgame, post-game, props, predictions, and more from the very best in the sports gambling industry. For my producer, Maddie George, Vinny, who does a great job with the graphics. Thanks for listening, folks, and thanks, Michelle, for coming on. We got to get her back. Get her back again.
We got it all right.
It's smarter to be on Sports Grid. Good night.